All right, welcome back to another episode with us on Divine Ethereal Beings. We're going to talk about channeling today. We're going to talk about some of the differences of people's perception of channeling, what we for ourselves believe channeling is, and a little bit of a fun conversation. And it's interesting as I'm talking about this right now, they just automatically brought up because I think it's so prevalent and happening in more and more people that it's being taken in different contexts. So having maybe some different perspectives or decipheration between all the different things that maybe people are talking about because humans like that labeling and putting in categories. So I think that by us talking a little bit more about channeling and the differences maybe that we felt in ourselves and what it comes through as and how it can be different for each person as well. So this is going to be our topic today. And so hopefully we can get some different perspectives and maybe get some more clear information that you can take that would be your truth and what you feel to be true for yourself. It's not saying like this is exactly what it is, but this is again just a different perspective and perception of our own experiences, I guess, with what channeling actually considered to be, I guess, is the way I would put it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it is one of those things that there are a lot of perceptions and about and a lot of opinions about what it is and isn't and how we think of it. And so for a lot of people, there lack of understanding always breeds some fear and things like that. And yeah, so I mean, we both, as you know, are channels. And so we hop on these and we're just going with the flow and delivering the information, dropping in. And for for me, like it's channeling because it's different than when I do a psychic reading and I'm connecting in with an individual and reading for them. It is more like reading a book for me then. It's like reading like an energy. I'm still just receiving, but it just feels and is different versus when I get in the channeling space, oftentimes my readings start with like psychic and end up just channeling and it's just coming through automatically. Um, versus like oftentimes it's like I don't feel like my words are my own. It's like the words and thoughts are implanted and they just come out and through. There's no thinking process in the brain that happens. It's just an automatic in and through. And often, well, much of the time, this is why we don't remember what's been said or um like we're still there. We're not totally like gone and out of the picture. Oftentimes it's like, oh, this is for me too. I usually tell people like, oh, this is actually not information I've ever heard before in any way, shape, or form. Oftentimes it is information that I've heard before, but it's said in a specific way for the person sitting in front of me. And then there's like more of the channeling where you allow beings to come in and speak with you or through you. Oftentimes, your voice, your mannerisms change. It's more of embodying a different frequency and energy and consciousness or being. And yet, even then, you are still there,
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
still in control. Yeah.
And I mean, again, there's first off, we're all channeling already because we are channeling a higher part of ourself. Like our soul's too big to fit in this itty bitty body. So we're already channeling a piece of our, true authentic self in this body. So in a way, if you really want to think about it, we're already channeling ourselves and who we are into this body here in the physical realm. But at the same time, I think one of the misperceptions a lot of people have is the fact that channeling is only for certain people or born with this gift or whatever it is. And that's just absolutely not true. From what I have learned myself through working with my own teams and understanding, like everybody has a capability of doing it. It's just you have to get to a point in yourself to be able to trust and surrender into being able to do different aspects of it. So even if that is wanting to connect with someone else's guides and giving messages from from that standpoint, like you said, reading somebody's energy is one thing because it still kind of has to be perceived through our own lens. So it's not like a deep, direct connection. It's more of a conversation, I guess I would say. But at some point when you're like, okay, I'm tired of trying to decipher this for myself. I find mediumship is more like that, where you're trying to decipher, you're having more of a conversation with that person. And it's all a little bit of game of charades sometimes because you're trying to decipher what is being given. And so I find like, obviously with that is definitely more energy on our side to try and figure out how to perceive that and give that to the person sitting across. But when it comes to channeling more of that information, just as we do here, we connect in with our teams and we just let it start free flowing in more of a way that we're not really thinking about it. It's just being given, like you said, and that makes it easier because now, we're just saying what we're being given instead of trying to analyze. Whereas in like a mediumship, I'm analyzing, trying to get that information to be correct or be given in a way that's meant to be said. So it's a lot less energy in a way, I find, when you just get to open up that door and start letting it free flow. And then, of course, like you said, there's more of that heavier meditative state, I would say, that would be where we're connecting more of that energy and allowing that to free flow through us together instead of consciously, I guess, trying to have it come in and then spit it out. So there's a lot of different ways people can channel. A lot of people think too that there's a very specific space that they need to be in. And honestly, it's like I find some people have asked me, they're like, so is it your external space that like you got to set up or whatever, right? And I'm like, no. It's like it's all internal, right? Because that's where your connection's coming from anyway. So if you can set up an internal space, then any space you go to, you'll still be able to achieve it. You'll be able to achieve whatever type of channeling or how heavy or deep you're wanting to go. As long as you know how to do that within yourself, you can take that to other spaces and do the same thing. You just might find that the energy around you feels different when you're in other spaces. So it might take you a little bit longer to maybe get your internal space set up, but it's not to say that you can't not do it anywhere because it comes from you and internal. It's like they keep showing me like the big antenna on top of the cars, way back in the days when they used to flap and fly in the wind. That's like basically what we have internally, right? Is our antenna. And we have to make sure our antenna is stable and balanced before it's going to catch the connection that you're wanting to connect with, whoever that might be. So it's an interesting state of being for sure. I do find for myself, especially like deep meditative states of channeling are really like I always feel so great when I come out of them because it's just like you've just done this big meditation, right? And it just you kind of feel like you get out of your own way too. You're not trying to analyze anything, you're just really letting it free flow through. But that is often the state of channeling that a lot of people get nervous in because they don't feel like they can trust enough to let that happen.
Well, and they keep bringing me back to sharing this piece that came through when you were channeling the collective the other day. Around they were saying that like even the ancient Egyptian civilizations with all the knowledge that they had and as advanced as they were compared to say us right now, um, they were explaining that even then there were a lot of that civilization that could not let their ego take a back seat. And so they still were unable to do it, even though they had all the understanding, all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the technology, all the things. And so it really is, can your ego take a back seat? Can you be an observer in your own body, in your own mind, in your own voice to allow something to work through you and to trust? That's that trust and surrender. Like, I'm still here. I'm a divine sovereign being setting the intention to let this frequency that I have already established in a connection with through working with people like the Daynas to help me, like that's why coaches, mentors are super valuable because they can help you get in and establish the frequency and just help you to discern and trust and feel safe in what you're communicating with, like especially if you're just starting out, whether that's through working with your guides or a particular frequency that wants to come in, so that you can feel safe and trust and surrender and be okay having your ego in the back seat as the observer, knowing that if you get uncomfortable, these higher frequencies feel that, know that, and at a moment's notice, they're happy to take a step further away and not be so close and integrated. So there's really
Totally.
nothing to fear.
It
Um,
is it's a mind fuck in a way. Honestly, it really is. That's what it really comes down to, is it's a battle of the titans in your own mind. Because I get it. I mean in our society, especially this one, never mind the ancient civilizations, right, where they actually had more of an understanding of all this and self. But I mean, you really think about where society's taught to be sheep in some ways. Like, don't think for yourself. Don't step outside the box. It's dangerous. It's scary. So, I mean, you look at, we're not going to talk about, religion and politics, but everybody knows the notion around those can cause a lot of emotional states of being simply because they were told, to believe certain things. So, that's where it becomes the battle, is with yourself. It's absolutely nothing outside of you other than your own self and your mind, and being able to let go of the things that it was taught to be able to accept something different. But this is why a lot of people sometimes just can never quite seem to achieve that, because they are so scared of the unknown that their pain is not greater than their fear. So the pain of being where they were, or all the understanding, and yet if that never gets to be greater than the fear of the unknown or the surrender of trust, you just can't ever seem to quite step over that line. Now, does that mean you're never going to be able to channel? No, that's absolutely not true. But you might not achieve the level of channeling that you maybe want to. Like, maybe you do want to do that really deep meditative state of channeling. That does take a lot of trust. It does take a lot of knowing to know that you're safe and that you're doing this as the observer. But the observer can be very hard to get into if the brain is not really allowing you to get to that state. So it does take a lot of work sometimes. It takes a lot of work on the self, and that's it. It comes down to just you. It's nothing on the external. And that's why, like you said, the mentors and the coaches can be so much of help in this area, because if it's somebody you trust and you know that is safe with, that's probably the best area to try and break through the walls with yourself, because you may not be able to do it by yourself. Let's just put it that way.
yeah, and for instance, again, the collective data channels is like reminding me to, it's not just the mind, like, because I am a channel, and I have been in a state where I kind of shut down this deeper type of channeling for a while, and so they came in and were able to identify that it's actually an experience I had that I'm holding in my body. And in my case in particular, they straight up said it's actually not your mind. It's an experience that happened that your body is holding on to. Your body is scared because of this particular experience that I had about a year ago. And my body just decided, holy shit, we're not safe. We're not doing it. And so I get to be in this process of reminding my body and helping my body to understand, like, we're safe, we're secure, this is not going to happen again, yada 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 yada. And the thing that happened was fine. Like, I'm here, I'm fine, I wasn't hurt. It was just one of those non-preferable experiences that was a learning experience, but that's it. Like, I wasn't harmed. I'm totally okay, right? But the body has its own consciousness as well. And so it decided something for me for survival, because that's what it's here to do, just like my ego does that in my mind, right? So first work on the mind piece, and then when, should you have a situation where you're unable to break through, right, like, then it's helpful to have somebody who can help identify, okay, what's remaining here in between me and where I want to be, and is it something I need to do? Is there anything that can be done? Like, could be just more practice, could be, like, who knows, like, it could be anything. But yeah, you definitely have to start with the mind and the meditation piece, right? Like, just being
Yes.
the observer of your own mind first and foremost.
Yeah, if you really want to start practicing more of it, like, and we're not even just talking about the deep meditative type of channel, just in general. Like, if you want your information to come more flowing, while you're doing the psychic reading, maybe, their guides want to step in and say, or your guides are like, hey, we can come a little closer and just give this more of like a free flowing information, instead of here's a little bit of trades for you to figure out like what happens with the mediumship. And it's interesting because they want us to talk a little bit about mediumship for a split second here, because a lot of people will wonder, well, why don't you just bring those people closer so it's more of like a channel? Okay, for me, I get a little unsure about that, all right? That's my body's reaction of saying, "Ooh, that's a stranger we don't really know that lived here in the physical world," right? So, I mean, yes, I understand it's still a being of light now that they're back in the energetics, but they was still lived a human life here. That's the life we're tapping into. So for me, it gets a little weird because it's like I wouldn't ask a stranger to come sit nice and close and cuddly on the train, so I don't really feel like doing that in spirit either. So that's why I choose to keep it as a conversation and playing more of like sitting across the table, getting that information from somebody instead of letting them come so close. It makes me uncomfortable in a way to think, my body goes, "Oh, no, thanks. That's a little strange," right? So there's some differences there that will definitely lie with everybody, but some are just they're okay with that, right? It just comes down to where you're comfortable and where you want your boundaries to be. One of my boundaries is that mediumship will always be a conversation. It's not going to necessarily be a straight channel through. So, but whereas my own guides or some of these higher beings that never miss, maybe they didn't necessarily live lives here, they
Yep.
feel very different, right? They're more
Yes.
highly ascended, their vibrations are higher. So it's more comfortable for me to be like, yeah, okay, I don't mind having you more closer in my space to make this easier for myself as well. So it comes down to getting to know yourself as well to know, okay, what you're comfortable with. And it maybe you're comfortable with it all, but you still want to have a boundary of like, actually, I think I'd rather just like it this way. That's totally fine too, because this comes back to your free will of choice and deciding what you want to do with it or how comfortable you are with it. Now, maybe you just want to channel for yourself, right? Maybe it's not really to do this with other people, and that's all right too. But that type of channeling, you might not want to do a deep, heavy meditative channel for that because you're going to either have to record yourself and watch back because it's often that you don't necessarily always remember what's come through, right? So there's a lot of different things and pieces and, different moving parts, I guess, that you could choose to work with. But when it comes back to actually practicing it, meditation is important. I've had a lot of people just be like, "Hey, can I just channel without meditating?" I said, "You can try, but I don't know how clear it's necessarily going to be coming in with your state of being, because that's what the meditative is important, right? Is state balance."
Well, and there's so many different ways to meditate, and there's like certain practices you can begin with that are meditative practices. So, like, okay, yeah, we play music when we drop in and go deep, and it's altering your brainwave frequency. Like, that's part of the point. Channeling, it's accessing certain brainwave frequencies, is what allows you to do that. Meditation's the quickest way there. But when you're wanting to start receiving messages and whatnot, like a lot of people do the automatic writing for channeling and receiving messages. So, one of my favorite exercises when I started was I would just sit, get quiet, get still, get grounded, get centered, open my crown chakra, connect in, and just sit and listen. And I would actually spend time like, okay, what's the closest thing that I can hear in my world right now? Like it might be a buzz of a light bulb or the breathing of the dog, right? Okay, what's the furthest thing away I can hear? Like, oh, I hear a siren in the distance or a train or, and really playing with, because you have ear chakras too, like channeling ears, like there are all these terms, but playing with expanding and contracting and just listening for the sake of listening and just observing what you hear, because it's also giving your ego and your brain something to focus on, that giving it a task so that it's not running the thoughts, right? And that's part of why, like, being with your breath when you're meditating, feeling it, focus on feeling it move through you or directing it into your heart and out. Like there are all these practices you can use that are part of the meditative process that are going to move you forward, um, to where you want to be. That's going to help you be the observer. That's going to help you receive. That's going to help you discern, right? Even that listening thing. If I go into reading or am like in mediumship, like I can sit there and utilize that. Okay, I'm just going to listen and just be intent on listening to see what comes through.
Exactly that. And it's a practice. It is. It's not like it's the same thing as learning a new sport. You know, you got to put your practice in. You got to be able to build the skill of doing it. It does it become integrated as you move along with it? Yeah, absolutely. But just as like we learn how to ride the bike, right? We never really forget how to ride the bike. This is something similar. It's not like you're gonna scrape this up as something brand new you've never done before because your body naturally has that connection. So it's not like everybody's starting from absolute square one. Some might feel like they are if others are just naturally seeming to tune in easier. You know, maybe their mind is just a little bit more open, I guess, right? It's just so not to compare yourself if you're planning to do this with a friend, or maybe you're practicing, you know, wanting to do it with a friend. This is why Dayna and I do it less together now too, because this collective is new to me. And so it was a different space for me to channel them. They feel very different than, you know, my guides or some of the other smaller, you know, beings, I guess, or frequencies that I've had come through. This is a very big frequency, very big collective. So, and again, like we work our way up to things, right? It's if this collective have shown up, you know, when I first really started dropping into deeper, heavier meditative states to channel, I would have never been able to handle it. I probably would have run away, right? Because I'd be like, holy, I don't know what that is. It's big. I can't handle that feeling because my body would get a little freaked out by it. So it's a workup, you know. I mean, and sometimes it's been a couple years, a year and a half for sure, since I know I could channel in a deep meditative state now. Did I do as many though? I didn't. It was something that I really kept on the DL, and it's really only just starting to come about more so now, I would find, with other people than it had before. So practicing with friends is always nice because if it's something that you both want to do, it gives you a great space to play in. But don't compare yourself to each other either, because if somebody seems to be connecting in and you think now you have an expectation of that's the way it should be, you're probably going to miss your own door as well when it comes to what it might feel like for yourself. So there's lots of different ways of, like we said, doing it, but the pieces that I think you gave as tools to start with are so important, and they are simple. People are like, oh, but it's just so simple. But I'm like, yeah, but if you've ever asked your mind to really listen to something, it probably would say, well, we're not used to doing it that way. So it's about, again, getting into a place where it's present moment, because present moment is always important. It's interesting to keep bringing up this factor about listening. So for me, my clairaudience is actually quite high on the way that I get communicated with sometimes, and in mediumship particularly. So there was this little group of ladies that I was doing a private reading with, and I was connecting with this woman, and her grandmother was coming through. And it was funny because I all of a sudden heard chimes, like a chime go off, and it felt like it was coming from their kitchen in the house. And I thought it was just me who heard it because I'm just so natural listening, right? Listening to everything I can hear and start putting the charades together. And all of a sudden I could see some eyebrows go up because obviously other people heard the chime too. And so I said, oh, did you guys hear that chime? And they said, yeah. I was like, okay, cool. I'm glad everybody else heard this one, you know? And so it was in that space where people are just so used to not necessarily listening in that way. So then when I started to click in and getting more information from this lovely woman that was telling me the chimes were from her and that they were very much in relation to something that this person had. And that's exactly what it was, right? But it was interesting to me that this listening thing has become so normal for me. So when I saw people's eyebrows go up, I was like, oh, wait a second. They heard that too.
Yeah, and, like, sorry, it was, like, dropping in very heavily, like, there are so many different types of clairs, and we all have certain ones are stronger than others. We also have the ability to develop ones that maybe don't feel so natural for us. We can develop those to being better. So, for me, I'm clear knowing, I'm clear feeling, so things are, like, implanted as if they're a thought. Like it's literally just a knowing. Like it took me a
Yeah,
long time of figuring out, like, oh, that's not just me. But people would be like, how do you know this stuff? Like, I don't know. I
I
just
get that all the
know.
time too. Yeah.
Never heard it before. I just know. And so, but the clairaudient, like that's something that um I've had experiences with and I've had to develop. Like this old house I used to live in when I first moved in, there were bells and chimes all the time. And what I was told was like, oh, the fairies are playing with you. And I'm like, cool, they can be outside because I'm not working with the fairies in this lifetime. But it's even now, like it it's just important to know that there are many different types of clairs, and there's clairs like precognizant, so it's like in advance you know things, versus like right in that present moment it's really clear. And again, trusting, but it can be really helpful to explore what are you naturally most in tune with or connected, what do you do naturally, and it's generally the thing that you don't even realize.
Yeah.
And then that can help you develop more confidence into trusting that, which then can help you expand into the other clair spaces and abilities more. And most people have a couple that they're strong with. It's not
Yeah, most
one.
do. Mine actually, all of them were like kind of right there. But again, that's not always typical for all of us. I think depending on what you've come in here to do sometimes, and I know I was on an extremely kind of accelerated timeline as well. So I know I kind of maybe jumped and skipped some rocks that, other people, I need that experience, I guess, before they can trust. Like I was straight up told through the Oracle one time that my mentor and one, a coach that has you've worked with as well, straight up when she was channeling, she the collective, they were called the Oracle, straight up said to me, you have to remember that you will have skipped some things that others need to go through because you have this crazy amount of trust that just doesn't always exist in everybody. And I was like, okay, get it, understood, right? I really had to compartmentalize that though, because for me, sometimes even working with some of my one-on-one clients, I really have to tap in and listen because I know that this is not an experience that I necessarily went through in this lifetime. So I have to be able to put it in a place that I can use all of my senses to get the information that's going to help them move through whatever it is their piece is. So yeah, practicing and getting to know yourself. And that's why present moment is so important. Like the whole listening thing is really, really fun because you'll start to see, okay, well, oh, this is a really natural place for me to just hear things.
Yeah.
Maybe it's playing in the body. Maybe they're giving you sensations through the body, right? That you all of a sudden just really seem to pick up and really feel. One of mine that quite catches me off guard sometimes is when I'm in communication with people in mediumship and they start, showing me in my body how they passed away. So it's like it can be uncomfortable sometimes too, right? So just because it doesn't feel nice, light, and airy doesn't mean you're not getting information through that way of connecting. Now, this is pretty basic for starting off with your connection because if you want to channel though, you have to be able to keep yourself in that balanced open state for it to all free flow. And that's where I think this is where we're building up with this because you got to be able to get comfortable and know yourself well enough to know what your natural instincts are for connection. But then as you grow that, you also have to get more comfortable with knowing that it can all come in kind of at once in all sorts of different clairs. And next thing you know, it's just now free flowing through you and you're not analyzing or trying to pick up the charade pieces necessarily and put the puzzle together anymore for yourself. So it's fun. I mean, it gets to be a lot of fun. It gets to be a place where you don't have to you just stop thinking so hard. You stop analyzing it and you just kind of start letting it roll through the way it needs to roll through. It's just like if people have ever seen our lives that we've been doing on Facebook with our readings right now, or you're joining our community to come hang out with us and do the lives, you will notice, particularly in myself, how much my body will sometimes start to move. Sometimes I'll get quite jittery. Sometimes my body just wants to feel like it needs to sit extremely straight in that moment. There'll be other times where you'll see me fall back in the chair all of a sudden. It's that motion of constant energy through the people that we might be with in that moment or that particular person that we're connecting in with. So, but the thing about it for myself is I had to realize that I had to stop having my ego say, well, stop moving so much, stop reacting like that. Because as soon as I tried to resist it, my connection started going out, right? The channeling piece started moving out. That was not as easy when it's just right there. So you do have to kind of just accept funny things about what happens sometimes with the body when you
Oh
start
yeah, okay.
connecting.
They're wanting me to tell the story of when I connected in and the weird noises. So like I said, I am re-stepping into my ability to be in that free flow channel state because I have some beings and collectives that really want to come through to assist on the planet. And so I dropped in on my own the other night because I sat for like an hour and a half with Dayna one day and like nothing was happening, right? Like, and I totally trust her. I'm so safe. And still, like the pressure of the ego, like, I think is still a challenge. And so I sat on my own, and my kids weren't here. I was totally alone, just me and the dog. And also the dog feels all of this stuff. It's quite interesting. Um, but I went through this whole process that they were like toning my vocal range and they're just tuning my body so their frequencies could come through my body, but it like super high pitch tones that I don't reach on a normal basis, super low. Lots of just like sounds, lots of light language would be one way to describe some of it, some singing, and all of these things. And I felt like I had traversed through 5 different beings, and that wasn't the case at all. It was just 2 beings that they were just reminding me of allowing that all to come through and be okay. And I didn't have a sore throat or anything, but I could tell the next day that like this had gone on. It just felt like exercise, like if you would go to the gym, but it felt like that for my voice and my vocal cords and my throat. And I they often like my head it moves like less. Dana's more free flowy in the motion. My head just starts being moved a lot, and so that experience happened. And then Dana was channeling the collective the other day, and they were, I forget exactly how they said this, so if you remember feel free to speak on it, but something about like they were addressing the fact that I was saying that these were weird noises, and they thought that was pretty funny because to them it's just frequency, like they don't even associate noises, like it's just energy. So it's just our human ego that is like, oh, that's a weird noise, like I should, you know, I maybe don't want to make that noise in front of someone else, right? Like it does take a lot of courage and raw vulnerability to just open and channel, like, and a lot of confidence. And you really have to be okay with yourself. So, one, the self knowing piece, and two, like being okay no matter what, like being able to stand in that no matter what someone else thinks, and understanding that whatever they think is about them and their perception. And so just to say, like, it is a calling if you're here to do it publicly and with a bunch of other people, and a lot of people have that calling. And it's also okay if you're doing it just for yourself and you never intend to do it for other people, in front of other people, or anything like that. Like it's all okay. It's the spectrum of like telepathy is our normal state.
Yeah. It is, and I love that story because I only remember bits and pieces, even from that moment. But I do remember the weird was a funny one because, and in my own body too. Like I remember when they were talking a little bit about more about that weird, and it was so true though, because in that moment it was like, right, everything really is just frequency. So sound is just sound. It's just frequency. So they giggle. Sometimes these beings and these collectives giggle at us because, yeah, the ego wants to definitely take it in another direction of saying weird, not okay. Right? But yeah, the other piece of it too is like even for yourself, if you just want to channel for yourself, and maybe the deep meditative stuff is easier, right? Because we get out of our own way when you can achieve that. There's people that I know that will just channel their higher self too. So it just puts you in a different frequency of yourself and a different state of being. So you're not necessarily connecting with a bunch of other energies, but it gives you clarity. So sometimes I've had people that will put themselves on film or just on voice record. So they'll go through and they'll channel and then they'll just listen back on it, right? And they'll get their answers from themselves or whatever it is that you were looking for from your higher self as well. So yes, there's lots of collectives and beings and energies that wish to come through and help us here, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's the ones you have to go with either. Like even for myself, I was not comfortable with channeling anything other than my own guides and my higher self for quite a while. So that was also when I wasn't really doing it with anybody, right? It was just me practicing doing that for myself in those spaces. But sometimes I felt it gave me a lot of clarity really quickly rather than sitting in the meditation and possibly letting my own thoughts take over. And maybe it takes a few days before, the clarity comes, right? So everybody wants it faster. I totally get that. I know we can all be impatient, but having the biggest patience with yourself to actually connect in is where your work is. Because once you can connect in and you have the trust and you have the surrender to the process of how this works, it does get to be easy. It gets to be fun, and it gets to be a place where, there can be a lot of exploration of self to be done, or a lot of clarity to be found, or maybe it's that you're trying to find your purpose and your path that you wish to be on. And, you start manifesting in different ways when you get to connect in like this. So it's
Yeah.
just another tool.
They're they're dropping in talk about discipline and dedication. So in the like you will hear, I mean, everywhere in the world, like discipline, 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 right? To do the things. And whether we're talking about this or anything else you do, there's an invitation to perceive it more as dedication. You're dedicated to doing what's necessary to be in the frequency you want to be in or have the life you want to have. Like you're creating something, you're a co-creator, and you're dedicated to that creation that's coming in, or that experience, or that life, or that way of being. Oftentimes discipline has this punishment connotation and can be quite heavy in the process. So it's like it takes dedication to yourself to one, know yourself fully, to be in that balanced state. Like that takes dedication just to get there. And it takes dedication to do the channeling. Like I'm Dayna and I are doing this so often that the guides are coming in and kind of giving me a little hard time, even like through her or just in general, or through this collective of like, you don't want to come sit with us? Like, what? And it's so lighthearted and it's so fun. And it doesn't have to be so serious. It can be these gentle reminders of remember what you're trying to do. And the fact that this, like, it's not a discipline, it's a dedication. And it is a choice moment by moment by moment. Like, where are you at? What are you doing? Is this decision taking you where you want to be? And if you're choosing not to sit down and meditate that evening, that's fine, but be clear on why that is. Like, it's okay to just want to veg out in Netflix. Like, that's totally fine too. There's no one's judging you. Nothing bad's
Yeah.
gonna happen.
It's all just about yourself, right? It's how far you want to take it, where do you want to go with it? But it is a practice. It is something that you do have to have the dedication to. And the reason for ourselves is like we know that we're also here to help, hence our podcast, hence our community, hence why we're doing these things. But like even for myself, I actually really love the way it feels as well, right? So it's like again, when you used to play sports, if you're ever a kid that played sports, or maybe you always loved art, or maybe it's the things that, when we were kids that we really enjoyed, if you really think back to like the reason why you enjoyed it so much, what about it? It's usually some kind of feeling it gave you. And this is something very similar, right? But at the same time, it can affect everybody in this beautiful way of connection and wholeness and knowing that you're not alone. And I think that's another piece of it as well, that kind of goes across the board as a universal feeling for everybody, that when you really get to connect in like this, you just find another piece of yourself that makes you feel whole as human. And so this is why I think a lot of people choose to do it, or choose to want to dedicate more of themselves to understanding and learning and growing in this way, because welcome also to the new world. We just had this massive solar eclipse go through. So everything here in vibrational set points has changed. And it's a great way to start changing and evolving with Earth itself as well, is by connecting, to Mother Earth, yourself, and everything else that could be out there that you want to connect with. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't have a whole lot else to put in on this one, I think, because this is just pretty clear and straightforward, I think, by this point.
Yeah. They're bringing me back to you didn't say being seen, heard, and understood, but you said something just now that triggered in a story. Whether it's you're doing it for yourself or you're being in it, like doing a session for Dayna, and maybe you're specifically asking, like, I will you channel these beings when she puts that out there? I don't think she has that out there yet. And I will have that out there in the future as well. I know that's part of my path. But uh I I I felt seen, heard, and understood by these beings in this collective that she channeled through in a way that I don't think I had before. And it was not just the words, I could feel the frequency and things landed and integrated in my body and my mind way more so than any. And I've had a ton of readings. I've had a ton of people channel for me. I've done it for myself. I've done so much work, right? And it's like we didn't have questions, but they were still willing to come through and they were answering things for me that I didn't even vocalize the question. Like it wasn't even a current thought while I was on that call for her with her and they were answering these questions and it was like, "Oh my god, like I felt so known and recognized, acknowledged, like it was really a really amazing experience." So I think that for me, like that's another motivation. Like I want to be the conduit for other people to have that experience.
Yeah, because even you just telling me that, it just makes me feel so giddy. Because like I know I can feel them on that level, like being seen, heard, and like seen, like truly seen. Like I don't think I've connected with beings that with this collective that can do that to that extent. And the way you said you can feel them too makes me happy because it's like, okay, I am doing this one for a reason. I've chosen to work with them for a reason, and I thank you for relaying that back because it just again it solidifies in like yeah, that makes me feel good because I now know, like, it's helped you on that level that it was different, right? It's different. So, because I think a part of me, even for myself, was like, well, I know there's a lot of other channelers out there. Does it really need to be me too? Right. And so when I said yes to this collective, and honestly, this was really not long ago, guys. I think this was like within the last couple of weeks. This is kind of been going on. And so, no, I don't have it out there yet, but it will probably definitely be a session that people will be able to do. It's like instead of me doing the reading with you on that kind of basis, you can come and ask this collective, and we'll tell you a little bit more about this collective at some point as well. But they're incredible. They really are, and they're an ancient energy that we both connect quite well with. So
Yeah, and we kind of asked a little bit about that topic. I don't know this you'll remember when I say it. But they were explaining that each unique being who like there might be many people who channel that collective, but each individual channel has a different contract with the collective about the theme or the thing that they're here to channel through from that collective. So
yeah, which is interesting as well again because it's not just coming through me. They're likely working with other people as well, but the collective might change or whatever's coming through for that person might be different. So yeah, it's a neat place to play. And I mean, if you're interested in doing it for yourself, try it out, give it a go, see how it goes for you. And if you're really like, shit, I can't do this, come join our community for one, because we want to have more conversation there with people with their experiences. And if that's still not working out, then you come and ask one of us, right, to come and help you or have a session with us, or you find somebody that you trust and know to work with you on these types of things. We're not just saying it's got to be us. We're not the only ones. We know that there's plenty, but we're all here with the individual people we're meant to work with. So it feels like us is a great choice. Fantastic. If that's somebody else, awesome as well. So until then, I think we'll leave it at here. Or do you have anything else to add?
nope, nothing else.
Okay, fantastic. Well, again, if you guys want to join our community, the link is in the description on every single podcast episode, and come and join us in there as we are getting this rolling now, and we're super excited to see more people come in and join us and have these experiences and start growing and expanding with us. So until next time, we'll see you later.